Association Championship Drag Racing. The NHRA Winston World Finals. Speeds in excess of 270 miles an hour, covering the quarter-mile distance in less than 6 seconds. Drag racing from the NHRA. The Los Angeles County Fairgrounds in Pomona, California, home of the largest county fair in the world. In fact, the LA County Fair is larger than all but 2 state fairs across the United States. But twice a year, when the fair is not in operation, you find competition of another sort, and the horsepower is generated by those 3,000 horsepower nitromethane burning engines of championship drag racing. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and welcome to the 22nd annual running of the Winston World Finals. As you can tell by the name, this is the final race of the season where the world champions are crowned. And as we come into this race, this man has had the opportunity to lock up his world championship title for the 2nd year in a row. That is Kenny Bernstein in Funny Car Eliminator. But 2 other racers are still in competition for the world titles. For more on that story, let's go to Steve Evans.
That's correct, Dave. In Top Fuel Eliminator, Big Daddy Don Garlits had to win 1 round of racing today to ice the World Championship. Well, he did it earlier today in round number 1 with a strong 5.40 seconds victory over Gene Snow. Well, that makes it official. Don Garlits becomes the first driver to ever win back-to-back NHRA Top Fuel titles. Congratulations.
I'm glad it's over. Now I can get on with the business of winning this race.
And Garlits could well be on his way to another victory here today. Now, in Pro Stock, it was exactly the same situation. Bob Glidden had to win in the first round to clinch the title over Warren Johnson. He did indeed do that. Glidden was a very happy man. Well, Bob, you've won a lot of world titles, but this one has to be especially sweet because it took such hard work on the part of an entire family. Nothing was ever easy for you this year.
No, Steve, nothing has been easy. But I'll tell you, since the thing in Atlanta, it took us 3 or 4 races to get back running like we thought we should be. And since then, we've been on just a roll, a hot streak. And it's been incredible.
After Atlanta, in your wildest dreams, would you have believed we would be having this conversation right now?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I think I made the statement to you at an earlier race. There was not a possibility of us winning the Winston World Championship, but it happened.
But the story the fans are following here today is that of the pink car, Shirley Muldowney. It's no secret that that team has been struggling. In fact, they didn't even show up at the last race on the circuit. They were home trying to put together a new engine combination. They arrived here, and again, disappointment. The car did not run well in qualifying until the final qualifying shot when Shirley posted a career best of 5.42 seconds and the fastest speed of her career at 267 miles per hour.
Quickest and fastest for me. I'm really proud of that.
The career best?
Career best. My guys are great.
And proving that elapsed time was no fluke, in round number 1 today, Shirley with another 5.42 second elapsed time victory over Earl Whiting. The lady has the consistency that it takes to get back into that winner's circle.
Steve, the former world champion, definitely back on the comeback trail. We're now in the 2nd round of Top Fuel eliminations, and what a battle this is. Don Garlits, the man that has already locked up the NHRA Winston World Championship title, against his nemesis, Darrell Gwynn, the quickest and fastest drag racer in history. At 25 years of age, Darrell Gwynn finished number 2 to Don Garlits, having won 3 events thus far this season. Garlits, what a story. At the age of 54, as good as he has ever been, as was evidenced by his appearance in the final round of the Krager Weld Wheel Top Fuel Classic yesterday. This brought together the 8 best Top Fuel dragsters in the country. In the final, it was Don Garlits against Joe Amato, and $30,000 went to Don Garlits on that brilliant run as he defeated Joe Amato.
I couldn't tell.
Well, I could tell, and so could our cameras. You won, Don Garlits.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's been a heck of a day.
A 5:39 for you, a 5:35 for him. You just get better.
I got him off the line.
That was yesterday. Now Garlits must concern himself with Darrell Gwynn in the 2nd round of the NHRA Winston World Championship. Darrell receiving driving instructions from his dad, Jerry, a former world champion during his years behind the wheel. As Garlits and Gwynn approach the starting line, they concentrate on getting the car positioned properly. There are light beams stretching across the track. They inch the front wheels into those beams. It indicates to starter Buster Couch they're ready, and Garlits red lights. He leaves too soon. It gives the win automatically to Darrell Gwynn. That advances Gwynn into the semifinals, but for Don Garlits, his weekend's over, but what a race it's been. He won the Krager Weld Wheel Classic and $30,000, and most importantly, locked up that coveted National Hot Rod Association Top Fuel World title. The NHRA Winston World Finals is being brought to you by Goodyear. Goodyear Eagles. You either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. And by Bram Bendix Autolite, which are all quality products of Allied Automotive. At the far end, you know Darrell Gwynn's got to be relieved to be rid of Don Garlits at the Winston World Finals. Innovator Don Garlits receiving the applause of a huge crowd. Garlits has been the leader all season. Earlier, Steve had a chance to look at the coming year.
This is the Top Fuel dragster of Larry Minor that was the #1 qualifier here this weekend, but unfortunately for Larry, he blazed the tires in round #1 and got beat. Boy, it feels good to sit in a Top Fuel car again. I wish I could have applied for the vacancy that existed here. You see, Gary Beck and Larry Minor, after a 7-year association and 1 world championship, have split up. Now, who's going to fill these shoes? Well, Larry Minor thought about Darrell Gwynn and his family operation from Florida, but Kenny Bernstein had already put them under his wing. He'll run a 2-car drag racing team next year. And then it hit him. Driver Dick LaHaye and crew chief daughter Kim. Yep, they'll be in full Larry Minor livery next season. They'll still run their car out of their own little garage in Michigan. But when they come to the races, they'll be under one of these big awnings with one of these big 18-wheelers. So when he goes to look for parts in the trailer, there won't just be a black hole like there has been this year. Now, as far as Gary Beck, Billy Meyer wants to expand and run a Top Fuel car as well as his funny car. Gary Beck will take the reins of that machine. Now, everybody in Top Fuel seems to be building new cars, and they're all going in a little bit different direction aerodynamically, so it won't be a look-alike Eliminator next year. In fact, Don Garlits is building a brand new streamliner that he says will look a lot like a child's paper airplane. And in the immortal words of Don Garlits himself, what is more aerodynamic than a piece of paper that can fly? You might want to rethink that, Big.
Steve, I hope his car works better than your plane. Here's the man that'll be driving for Larry Minor next year. This is Dick LaHaye from Lansing, Michigan. LaHaye racing in round #2 of the NHRA Winston World Finals against Connie Coletta from Ypsilanti, Michigan. Coletta in the first round defeated LaHaye's new boss, Larry Minor, while LaHaye himself beat Denver Shoes. LaHaye's operation is truly a family-run affair. Dad Dick drives the car. His daughter, Kim LaHaye, is the crew chief on the car in the near lane. Coletta has tasted victory on this racetrack. In fact, his first NHRA win came at the Winter Nationals in Pomona way back in 1967. Coletta's got the advantage, but look at LaHaye go to the finish line. LaHaye, by more than a car length, wins the race. His elapsed time, 5.45 seconds. His speed over 257 miles an hour. Coletta having some problems in the middle of the course, putting him out of the race for the day. Here's Joe Amato. You saw him as he lost to Don Garlits in the Krager Weld Wheel Classic yesterday. Here in round #2 of the NHRA Winston World Finals, he's racing against the streamliner of Gary Ormsby. Amato races out of his home base in Old Forge, Pennsylvania. We'll be in Pennsylvania next season with our ESPN coverage of the Castrol GTX Keystone Nationals from Maple Grove Raceway. In the first round, Joe Amato defeated Dan Pastorini, but hurt the engine and had to change it to get ready to race against the streamliner of Gary Ormsby, who defeated Hank Endres in round #1. What an exotic car of Gary Ormsby. He debuted on this racetrack at the NHRA Winter Nationals earlier this season, has now got the performance level up where he's competitive with any car on the track. And it is Ormsby losing a supercharger. The supercharger explodes and bounces down the track. Amato streaks through to the win, and what a break for him, 5.50 off the pace just a bit. But Ormsby causing serious damage to the car as the supercharger exploded. As we look again, you see in the far lane, Ormsby's car side by side with Joe Amato right off the starting line, but then disaster strikes. The ball of fire indicating the supercharger explosion, and the damage is extensive and very expensive for Gary Ormsby. Not only was there severe engine damage, but the Kevlar body panels also took a bad hit as Gary Ormsby looks over the car and contemplates what to do for next season. On the starting line, Shirley Muldowney receiving the word from her crew, try another burnout, and it looked like it worked. Shirley gets quite a gift here in the second round as her competition, Ed Moore, had problems on his burnout. You can see members of the NHRA Safety Safari right on the scene, helping the crew push the car back to the starting line. The engine is shut off. Ed Moore in the first round defeated longtime veteran Eddie Hill, while Shirley Muldowney topped Earl Whiting. Moore being pushed back into the pit area, his day over, but for Shirley, her chance to advance into the semifinals on a single run. While she cannot be defeated by her competition, you can bet Shirley is going to be trying for a good run because lane choice in the semifinals will be based on the elapsed time of the previous round. And a brilliant 5.42 second elapsed time in her speed, over 267 miles an hour. Shirley Muldowney enjoying her best day at the drags ever in a career that spans over 20 years on the nation's quarter-mile racetrack. That sets up our semifinal pairings. Two former world champions going at it, Shirley Muldowney and Joe Amato, with Shirley having lane choice, and Darrell Gwynn against Dick LaHaye, Gwynn having lane choice. Darrell, of course, the recipient of that red light gift that put Don Garlits out of competition at this NHRA Winston World Finals. The between rounds maintenance going on in Gwynn's pit area, the crew concentrating on their task. In just a little while, Darrell Gwynn will bring the world's fastest dragster to the starting line. In Pomona, California, we're in Shirley Muldowney's pit area where her son John is under the dragster performing the maintenance so necessary to keep these 3,000 horsepower engines together. This is the best the Muldowney team has done all season long, and they are reveling in the moment. While that work is going on, it's funny car time on the starting line. These cars with their fiberglass bodies and their engines so similar to the Top Fuel dragster are true crowd pleasers. In the near lane, it's Dale Baldy. He is racing against Jim Head. In the first round of competition at the NHRA Winston World Finals, Baldy defeated the car driven by Johnny West. Baldy from Granada Hills, California. Hailing from Columbus, Ohio is Jim Head. He beat the Texan, the Blue Max, former Winston World Champion Raymond Beadle. Head, a three-time winner during his career on the NHRA National Event Trail, included in those wins the U.S. Nationals, the biggest race of them all. Baldy basically took this year off. He raced the NHRA Winter Nationals on this same racetrack in Pomona, California, laid out the entire season, and then came back with his Buick Somerset Regal to race here at the Winston World Finals. We're in round number 2 of Funny Car Eliminator. Head in the far lane, inching ever so slowly into those light beams. Baldy is staged, and Head's having some problems. He hits the wall. Jim Head hits the side of the car against the concrete retaining wall. Baldy goes on for the win, 5.86 seconds at 248 miles an hour. When Head's car came in contact with the wall, that automatically disqualified him. The car apparently is in pretty good shape as we look again. The two cars left together off the starting line when the Christmas tree light went green. But then problems set in for Jim Head. With the front wheels off the ground, the car beginning to drift out to the guardrail. He can't control it and slam into the concrete, Head losing the race at that point. It appears the only damage that was done was maybe wear the shiny off the side of the car and a bending of the header pipes. Head was very lucky when the car went into the guardrail almost flat. Had he been a little bit more at an oblique angle, it could have caused much more serious damage. Back at the starting line, the Winston World Champion for the second year in a row, the former Texan, now out of Newport Beach, California, Kenny Bernstein. The quickest and fastest funny car that has ever graced a quarter-mile racetrack is racing against Jerry Jefferson. A rising star in the funny car ranks, Jefferson hails from Choctaw, Oklahoma. How good is he? Well, in the first round, Jefferson defeated Ed McCulloch, the team driver for Larry Minor. Meantime, Kenny Bernstein defeated Tim Gross in his first round confrontation. Bernstein's operation is noted for the talent of his crew chief, Dale Armstrong. How good is he? Well, it's just been announced that Bernstein will pay Dale Armstrong $1.5 million over the next 5 years. Folks, that's $300,000 a year for a drag racing crew chief. That's how good Dale Armstrong is. Bernstein in the near lane. Jerry Jefferson from Choctaw, Oklahoma in the far lane. And Jefferson's got the lead, but look at the horsepower. Oh, Kenny Bernstein just blows by Jerry Jefferson. 5.65 seconds, 262 miles an hour. The Winston World Champion might have had a nervous moment or two there as Jefferson got the advantage off the starting line. In replay, you can see Jefferson pull away from Bernstein at the starting line. But then, that famed Dale Armstrong horsepower came into play, and Bernstein won handily.
Well, Mr. Jefferson made quite a race out of that, didn't he?
Well, who was that guy? Needless to say, he was. I watched him a long way, Steve, at least half the racetrack, maybe a little further than half track. I didn't think the King was ever going to get around it.
Your car slowed up a bit to a 565, intentionally?
Not intentionally at all, but it smoked the tires up there on the dry hop that we tried, so I had to hold the brake on the starting line, and that usually kills a little elapsed time.
So you left with the brake on?
Yes, I held it on tight because Dale had told me and signaled to me that it was smoking the tires, and if you don't control the tire spin, you're going to lose anyway, so I had to ride the brake. It usually slows it up.
Kenny Bernstein, he goes to the semis.
On the starting line, our next pair of cars ready for second round competition at this NHRA Winston World Finals. Another surprise out of the state of Oklahoma. From Oklahoma City comes Steve Hodkinson, racing against the man that has been chasing Kenny Bernstein all season long. Finishing number 2 in the World Championship points chase is Mark Oswald. In round number 1, Oswald defeated John Force, while Steve Hodkinson defeated the California school teacher Gary Dencham. Hodkinson has increased his participation in NHRA events this season, and his performance level is improving, as is evidenced here by his second round race against Mark Oswald. And look at this, Hodkinson and Oswald, but the horsepower of Candies and Hughes comes into play at the final, and it is a 5.65 second elapsed time, 265-mile-an-hour win for Mark Oswald. Back in the pit area of Joe Amato, there's some thrashing going on as the crew's got problems, the engine having difficulties in the previous round. They tell us they may have to change superchargers for the semifinal race against Dick LaHaye. Championship drag racing at its best. In just a few weeks, it'll be time for the Motorcraft Quality Parts Gator Nationals. If you like what you see, make plans to be in Gainesville, Florida. You'll see some great new cars. Steve Evans has the story.
Dave, the biggest news in funny car racing for next season, the return of 4-time world champion Don the Snake Prudhomme. A brand new sponsor, a brand new race car. This is not it. This is strictly for show. But Snake, it is great to hear you're coming back after a year off.
Thanks, Steve. I enjoyed my time off, but it's time to go to work.
What are the pluses and the minuses of taking a vacation for an entire season?
Well, you get a little different perspective on the sport and your life and everything else. I had a great rest, I should say. Spent a lot of time with my family. But, you know, I miss drag racing a great deal. And the last couple of months, I just had to get back into it and got hooked up with Skoll's, a great sponsor, and I'm ready.
Are you hungry?
Very.
We'll see you at the Winter Nationals. Thanks.
You bet, Steve. Thank you.
Right, some more funny car news. Billy Meyer intends next year to campaign 2 cars, his own machine and a car for 2-time world champion Frank Hawley, who will come out of retirement if indeed that all comes about. Kenny Bernstein, after many seasons with Ford, he is going next year with a Buick LeSabre body to match his NASCAR operation. Not to be outdone, the Ford Motor Company has convinced Candies and Hughes, Mark Oswald, the driver, to switch from their Pontiac Firebird body to a sleek new Ford Thunderbird. And Tim Gross has signed a deal with MTV, the music television network. His car will be called the Rockin' and Racin' Corvette.
Steve, it is great to see such continued sponsor involvement in NHRA Championship drag racing. Our next pair of cars feature Mike Dunn, the U.S. Nationals champion, in the near lane against Billy Meyer. Meyer, of course, the owner and builder of the fabled Texas Motorplex. In round number 1, Meyer defeated Trip Shoemake, while Mike Dunn, a second-generation drag racing champion, defeated Tom Hoover. Our 6-race ESPN schedule for the upcoming season includes the Chief Nationals at Myers, Texas Motorplex, where last year we saw the quickest and fastest run ever. Darrell Gwynn, 5.26 seconds at over 278 miles an hour. Right now, Billy Meyer is concentrating, though, on getting by Mike Dunn, and he's doing it handily at this point. Meyer stays ahead by less than a car length. A little smoke coming out of the engine, indicating he may have burned a piston or two, but for Meyer, the win moves him to the semifinals at a 5.70 second, 247 mile an hour charge. Meyer will be racing against Dale Baldy. He'll have lane choice in that semifinal race. The other pair finds Mark Oswald and Kenny Bernstein, the last two Winston World Champions, Oswald having lane choice. And that brings us to the second round of Pro Stock Eliminator. These are the factory hot rods, starting life as an original car, but with extensive modifications, limited to 500 cubic inches, 2 4-barrel carburetors running on racing gasoline. These cars run nearly 190 miles an hour. The Chevrolet Camaro, driven by Darrell Alderman, defeated Frank Iaconio, the Winter Nationals champion, in the first round. Bruce Allen, driving for Rare and Morrison out of Arlington, Texas, defeated Ventura, California's Jerry Ekman in his first-round race. Almost identical Chevrolet Camaros. This is a battle of horsepower. Alderman in the far lane moved into the driver's seat of this car at mid-season when the regular driver, David Hutchins, had to pull out. And Alderman has the advantage over the favorite, Bruce Allen. Allen pulls alongside and then wins the race. Allen just using that raw horsepower to pull out the win right at the finish line. 7.56 seconds his elapsed time. His speed was 183 miles an hour. Alderman was close behind, though. 7.58 seconds was his elapsed time. In replay, you can see the advantage that Alderman built up off the starting line. He held that advantage all the way down the racetrack until the finish line. And then, by just a matter of inches, Bruce Allen squeezes by to take the win. The next pair matches the man that has already won the Winston World Championship title against a 2-time winner thus far this season. Butch Leal has won the Spring Nationals and the Grand Nationals title. In round number 1 here at the Winston World Finals, he defeated Joe Lafone. And as you recall, Bob Glidden won as Lee Dean red-lighted in the first round. That clinched Glidden's 7th Winston World Championship Pro Stock title. Butch Leal drives the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am in the far lane. He's got the advantage over Glidden off the starting line, but that advantage disappears very quickly. Glidden drives by in the middle of the course and wins by a car length. Glidden's elapsed time, 7.48 seconds. His speed, 182 miles an hour. On the starting line, the fast-paced NHRA Championship action continues as Warren Johnson in the Oldsmobile Forenza races against the Pontiac of Don Beverly. He won his first NHRA title this season, taking the Castrol GTX Keystone Nationals title. In the first round, he defeated Rich Schrebeck. Warren Johnson has won 3 races this year. He earned his right to race against Beverly by beating Stan Mizell. The Pontiac of Beverly, a very unique car. It uses a computer-controlled shifting device. He doesn't have to pull the levers, and he's got a whopping advantage over a trouble-plagued Warren Johnson. Something going wrong with Johnson's car, and Beverly wins handily with a 7.55 second elapsed time. His speed, 176 miles an hour. Another Pontiac Trans Am lifting the wheels on the dry burnout is Ronnie Manchester. He is racing against the team car with Warren Johnson, the Oldsmobile Forenza of Don Kuntz and Albert Clark. In round number 1, Willie Underdown fell to the Oldsmobile of Don Kuntz, while Ronnie Manchester took his Pontiac to the finish line ahead of Joe Sway. Both drivers concentrating on getting the cars staged properly because the start in NHRA Championship drag racing is all important, and the advantage goes to Manchester. Kuntz may be the favorite car, but Manchester got the jump at the starting line, and at the finish he pulls it out by inches. 7.63 seconds at 181 miles an hour. Kuntz was actually quicker with an elapsed time of 7.59 seconds, but that starting line advantage by Manchester paid off where it counts right there at the finish line, as you can see, by a wheel length. Ronnie Manchester moves into the semifinals to race against Don Beverly. Beverly having the lane choice. The other pairing in the Pro Stock semifinals, Bob Glidden against Bruce Allen. The classic Ford versus Chevrolet battle, with Glidden and the Thunderbird having lane choice. Oswald adjusting the spacing on the clutch disc, a critical part of the preparation of his car for the upcoming race against Kenny Bernstein in the semifinals. On the starting line, it is Top Fuel Eliminator, and here is Darrell Gwynn. Gwynn is racing against Dick LaHaye in this semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator. These cars are exotic racing machines designed to cover a quarter mile as quickly as possible, and they consume a tremendous amount of fuel. Multiple gallons are used during a quarter mile run, and the fuel systems are one of the most critical parts of the racing engine. Earlier, Steve took a look at the complexities of fuel distribution.
We've talked before about how a top fuel dragster or a funny car can burn up to 12 gallons of nitromethane on a single run. Well, thanks to fuel systems expert Sid Waterman and his special flow bench here, we're going to be able to illustrate that for you. Now, this is the fuel injector. This plexiglass box, that takes the place of the supercharger, and this plate, the place of the manifold. And the space here between the drums, well, that's where the engine would be. Now, this is a Don Garlits style fuel system. There are 24 nozzles. 40% of the fuel goes through the injector and through the supercharger. 60% of it is injected directly into the engine. And with Sid's cooperation, let's show you what it looks like at idle. Now, the engine has just started, and this is how much fuel would be flowing through it to keep the motor running at about 1,000 RPM. Now, we're using water here for safety reasons and the fact we can't afford $24 a gallon just for our own amusement. Okay, Sid, I'm going to play driver here and open the throttle for a blast down the drag strip. That's how much fuel goes through one of these motors as it goes down the quarter mile. Unbelievable.
Steve, it truly is. I've had less water out of a motel room shower. The fuel going through the superchargers on these 3,000 horsepower engines can propel these cars at over 278 miles an hour in a quarter mile. Gwynn's got the jump on Dick LaHaye. Can he make it pay off at the finish? He does. Darrell Gwynn goes into the final round of the NHRA Winston World Finals. Look at the elapsed time. The quickest run of the meet, 5.32 seconds. His speed over 273 miles an hour. Here comes Shirley. What a great day on the racetrack this former three-time world champion is enjoying. Her elapsed times are in the low 540s, and she's going to need every bit of that as she races against Joe Amato. The winner of this semifinal round race earns the right to compete against Darrell Gwynn for the title.
Darrell, that's as quick as anyone has ever traveled this quarter mile at 5:32, and what a drag race.
Jeez, I'll tell you, I know I had to cut a light, and I can't believe the guys I'm having to race here. Garlits, LaHaye, they are not cutting me any slack at all. I'm telling you, we knew we had to step on it to race LaHaye. Only I can say is we got one more round to go. Either got Shirley or Amato. Seems like the whole crew, the gang, everybody's ready. My grandparents are here. I just like to finish off the year just perfect right here.
Well, this is where he started the season with a big win at the Pomona racetrack when he won the Winter Nationals title. Neither one of these drivers will cut Darrell Gwynn any slack. Joe Amato in the far lane, Shirley Muldowney in the near lane. Amato has been plagued with engine trouble throughout the meet, while Shirley's car has performed flawlessly. And Shirley goes up in smoke. Amato streaks to the finish line. It'll be Joe Amato and Darrell Gwynn in the final. Gwynn will have lane choice. Amato 5.47 seconds. His speed 266 miles an hour. And you know it has to be a disappointment for Shirley as she coasts to a stop. The car leaving the starting line, then going instantly into tire smoke, that indicating the tires are slipping. Amato, not a bit of slippage. He just pulls ahead immediately and goes on to take an uncontested win. While Amato may have won the race, Shirley's performance has to strengthen her confidence for next season.
Well, Joe, the racing wasn't the hard work. That was all in the pits. I was wondering if you were even going to make it in the lanes there for a while.
Yeah, Steve, my guys have a lot of credit coming for this race. They've been working their tail off, you know. And yesterday I didn't drive too good in the shootout for the 30,000, so they're really pushing me. But they're working real hard because we lost the motor the first round. We had to change it. So what Timmy did this round is he figured out how to put the stuff from the heads and stuff from the first round back on this motor. He had to change push rod angles and, I mean, a lot of work and, you know, a lot up there.
5:47 was the result. Well,
that's, you know, Darrell ran a 32, so we're going to be really pressed to beat him the next round. But we got to be in the lane and alongside him before you get a chance to do it.
And you were indeed there at the finish line as well.
For the second day in a row, Joe Amato goes into the final round of a very important race. He'll be against Darrell Gwynn in the title round of the Winston World Finals.
You know, Shirley, for a while there, it seemed like old times.
Yes, it did. We had to pay attention. We knew that you can't count this guy out. He's plenty good. I don't know, maybe we did a little too much on the clutch. Hard telling, but we're pretty happy, Steve.
And you leave here with a load of confidence you didn't have before.
We can sit out this winter on that. Better than before we got here. Thank you.
Shirley Muldowney, what a job her and her crew did today.
Steve, it is really great to see after that horrendous crash that kept Shirley Muldowney out of racing all last season, to see her end this year on such a positive note. World Finals, work going on in Joe Amato's pit area. It is highly organized. One man works on the supercharger, another works on the engine bearings, another on the clutch. In Amato's case, it is the latest in clutch technology, a new device known as a lock-up clutch. It allows the clutch to be more efficient at the finish line. On the starting line, it is Billy Meyer against Dale Paldy in the semifinal round of Funny Car Eliminator. Paldy is showing some remarkable performances here at the World Finals, considering he sat out practically the entire season. For Billy Meyer, he's concentrated on lots of things throughout this year. He has built a racetrack in Dallas, Texas, plus raced his funny car. Meyer will be even busier next season, as he will be racing either a 2 or 3 car team out of his home base in Waco, Texas. Paldy in the far lane, Meyer the near lane. Both cars get a great start, and Paldy smokes the tires. Meyer heads to the finish line and into the final round. Meyer with a 5.71 second elapsed time. His speed, 246 miles an hour. Good enough to put him into the finals. For Dale Paldy, he just coasts to a stop. His day is done. Kenny Bernstein locked up his second consecutive Winston World Championship title before he came to the Pomona Raceway. Bernstein won 4 NHRA national events this season, leading him to the Winston World Championship crown. He's racing here against Mark Oswald, who finished number 2. He won 3 national events this year and was in the thick of the points chase until the last race, the Fall Nationals at Phoenix, Arizona, when Bernstein locked up the title. These two drivers, Bernstein and Oswald, have set the performance standards all year. Steve?
Well, with Dale Paldy smoking the tires, that gave it to Billy Meyer. A 5.71, good elapsed time, but the speed fell off to only 2.40, 2.46.
Well, I just saw him out of the corner of my eye, and I went by him real fast, you know, and you know the guy's in trouble when something happens like that. So I just went for the ET and drove in the chute, and if you'll notice on the video, the chute will hit early and kill the mile an hour. That's still, you know, we were at 570 flat, 570 flat, 571. But the thing's about 15 mile an hour slower than Bernstein and Oswald, so I have to do it in the first 1,000 foot.
Okay. Should be a great final. Billy Meyer will be in it.
Steve, we're looking forward to that final as Meyer will race one of these two drivers. In the far lane is Kenny Bernstein. He's driving the Ford Tempo-bodied car, while in the near lane, the Candies and Hughes car out of Houma, Louisiana, a Pontiac Firebird driven by Mark Oswald. As we told you earlier, both these drivers changing body styles for next season. And what a start for Bernstein. He just blasts by Oswald. At the finish line, it's more than 2 car lengths, and that is low elapsed time of the meet for funny cars. 5.56 seconds. His speed over 262 miles an hour. That advances Kenny Bernstein into the final round to race against Billy Meyer. Bernstein having the lane choice. Meantime, back in the pit area, Darrell Gwynn's grandparents, Elaine and Douglas Walker, looking on intently as the crew readies this car for the final round. This family operation is one of many in NHRA Championship drag racing competition. It is headed up by the father and the crew chief on the car, Jerry Gwynn. We'll be back with Pro Stock semifinal racing after this. California, I'm Dave McClelland, along with Steve Evans, and a huge crowd is on hand. Part of the record-shattering attendance figures set this year at NHRA national events. It's little wonder that the people are flocking to see National Hot Rod Association racing when you consider the close competition and the excitement at every one of these events. Here is Pro Stock semifinals. It is Bruce Allen driving the Rare and Morrison Camaro, the leading proponents of Chevrolets in drag racing, against the Ford Thunderbird and 7-time Winston World Champion Bob Glidden. Pro Stock is one of those ever-changing categories of competition. Like Top Fuel and Funny Car, there's going to be some movement next season. Earlier, Steve had the story.
When you're touring the pro stock pits next season looking for world champion Bob Glidden's car, forget the usual blue and white, because this is what Glidden's car will look like in '87. A brand new Thunderbird with a restyled front end, a new color scheme, and a new sponsor. Now, Glidden feels that that new front end will be a bit more aerodynamic. Actually, he will have 2 of these cars with different chassis setups for different racetracks. Now, in a bit of one-upsmanship, Warren Johnson will have 3 Oldsmobile Forenzas in his trailer for the very same reason. Now, most of the Chevrolet heavyweights, Joe Lapone, Rear Morrison, are abandoning the Camaro for the new Chevrolet Berlinetta. It looks a bit like the Olds Forenza, and it's narrower than the Camaro. They've got to do something, because up to this point this season, Chevrolet has not won a single pro stock title.
2 of the best drivers in all of motorsports, Bruce Allen in the far lane at the wheel of that Chevrolet against Bob Glidden. The concentration showing on Glidden's face as he creeps into the staging beam. Look at him take a breath. You'd think that a man that has already locked up the Winston World Championship title would be a little more relaxed, but Glidden wants to end this season on a high note with a victory. Oh, a good start by both drivers. It appears Allen has the advantage. This could be the saving grace for Chevrolet this season, but it's not to be. From behind comes Bob Glidden. Sons Billy and Rusty with a high five on the starting line. 7.51 seconds at 182 miles an hour. That was a race that was almost too close to call by eye. That's why the NHRA uses those electronic scoring devices at the finish line to decide races just like this. The advantage went to Bruce Allen off the starting line by 0.02 of a second. That results in a lead of just a few feet in the middle of the course. Now Bob Glidden has got to come from behind. You can see as he inches up on Allen, he is still behind when they approach the speed trap. The racetrack is only 1,320 feet long, and that finish line comes up quick. And Bob Glidden is ahead. Look at the times. Glidden, 0.02 of a second quicker. He wins it.
We did win.
Yes, you won.
I'll tell you, that was a close one. That was really a race. I'll tell you, that's the best race we've had. And, you know, just side by side, and they just, we're just glad to be here, be in the final. I don't know who we're going to run in the final, but golly darn, I'm glad to be here.
Let's go to the starting and we'll find out.
Steve, regardless of who wins the race, it'll be a Pontiac Firebird in the final against Glidden's Ford. It could be Ronnie Manchester out of Westport, Massachusetts. This is the furthest in competition that Manchester has ever been since he started racing pro stocks way back in 1973. He's racing a man who, based on performances, has got to be considered the favorite, Don Beverly. The pair of Pontiacs set to go. And Beverly red lights. He rolls through the starting line, leaving the red light, disqualifying him. And for the first time in his career, Ronnie Manchester is in the final round, racing against the 7-time world champion. There's the red light. That's what it looks like to the driver. He knows he made the mistake. Don Beverly losing to Ronnie Manchester as he left the starting line just a bit too soon. Surprises can happen, particularly in pro stock racing, as Ronnie Manchester is in the finals.
Well, Dave, here's a fellow we haven't seen for a while in our television covering of drag racing, Ronnie Manchester. And Ronnie, a great job going to the finals.
Well, we got a lot of breaks today.
In what way?
Well, I had Joe Sway red light against me first round. And Don Beverly red light against me this round. And I did a good job driving in the second round. And we just one round at a time.
Would you try to leave on Glidden? I mean, just gamble a little bit maybe in the final?
I win today. If you can be a runner-up here, you might as well finish. You won, because Bob Glidden wins everything. He's really good. He's hard to beat.
Amen to that. Good luck to you, though.
Steve, that gives you an idea what the competition thinks of Bob Glidden, the Winston World Champion, in the finals against Ronnie Manchester here in Pomona, California. That's the next race coming up. Right now, part of that huge crowd is looking on intently as the crew hard at work on Billy Meyer's funny car, preparing it for the final round against Kenny Bernstein. We'll be coming right back to Pomona and the Winston World Finals. Mother Joan Gwynn, grandmother Elaine Walker, Darrell's fiancée, Shelley Stanton, mixing up the fuel that will go into the tank to propel this 3,000 horsepower car through the quarter mile. These the final touches being put on the car, readying it for the race against Joe Amato. Looking on, a friend of the family, young Robin Goodwin, maybe a drag racing star of the future. Meantime, the finals have begun. Bob Glidden and the Ford Thunderbird heating up those tires on the burnout. The burnout designed for a couple of purposes. One, to get the tires as clean as possible, and secondly, to bring them up to operating temperature. The only way you can do that is to start them spinning and smoking. Burning rubber is what it's known as. Ronnie Manchester and his Pontiac Firebird. He's got his work cut out for him. Glidden has definitely got the advantage on all levels of performance, both in elapsed time and speed. Manchester can hope for a great start, maybe some problems out of Glidden, but Glidden definitely the favorite in the final round. The winningest driver in drag racing history, Bob Glidden, has 51 victories to his credit. That's an unprecedented total. No other racer, not even Don Garlits, has won as many races as Bob Glidden. Glidden, the last to stage in this final round confrontation. They're set, and it is Manchester against Glidden. A good start for both drivers. And now the power of that board begins to come into play, and he easily pulls away from Ronnie Manchester to win his 52nd victory. 7.48 seconds. He covered the quarter mile at a speed of over 183 miles an hour. On the starting line, we're getting set for the finals in Funny Car Eliminator. Billy Meyer into the final round for the third time this season. He lost to Tom McEwen at the Cajun Nationals, Mike Dunn at the U.S. Nationals, and here at the last race of the year, he's up against the toughest car of them all, the reigning world champion, Kenny Bernstein. But don't count Meyer out. He's won 10 times in his career, which started at the age of 16. Steve?
What a perfect way to cap a season. The Winston World Finals is yours.
I'll tell you, Steve, this has been another one of those storybook years. We started out with the bad season, and as we went on, it just got better and better and better. And, you know, it ended up just like it's been the last 6 or 7 races, just near perfection.
Now, we've talked. You and Etta have never had a vacation. In your married life, never even on a honeymoon. One of your sponsors just gave you a trip to Hawaii. Are you going to go?
Absolutely. The great people at Chief Auto Parts for winning the 50th race at Billy Meyer's track in Dallas are sending us to the 50th state in Hawaii. And Etta's looking forward to it. I'm going to go. No, really, I'm looking forward to getting away and taking a few days and relaxing.
Aloha.
Thank you.
The champion, Bob Glidden.
Steve, if Glidden holds true to form, he'll take his dynamometer and engine shop with him on that trip to Hawaii. Meanwhile, back at the starting line, Billy Meyer and Kenny Bernstein getting set for their final round. And as if Billy Meyer didn't have enough to think about, he's got to worry about some of the technology on Bernstein's car. Kenny using a lock-up clutch. We told you earlier about the lock-up clutch device in Joe Amato's dragster. Well, Bernstein and his crew chief Dale Armstrong keeping that Ford Tempo on the leading edge of technology. There's a button on the steering wheel that Bernstein can push as he heads down the racetrack that locks up the clutch to make it more efficient and improve the performance of the car. The Bernstein operation always at the head of the technological advances. The first to use wind tunnel testing. The first to use a computer. And in every case, Kenny Bernstein very reluctant to talk about it, to reveal the secrets that have given him and his crew such an advantage over the rest of the field. A great start for Billy Meyer, giving Kenny Bernstein all he can handle. As they head down track, Bernstein pulls ahead at the finish line. By over a car length, Kenny Bernstein wins the Winston World Finals title. What a way to cap a season for Bernstein, taking the World Championship crown and the World Finals title. His elapsed time, 5.56 seconds. His speed, over 259 miles an hour. In replay, you can see Billy Meyer got a very slight advantage off the starting line using his driving skill. But instantly, the power of Kenny Bernstein's car came into play. The closer they get to the finish line, the further Kenny Bernstein pulled ahead of Billy Meyer. This is the way Bernstein dominated the last half of this season to carry him to the Winston World Championship title.
Dave, the first thing Kenny said when he got his helmet off, he yelled over at Billy Meyer, said, "I saw you a long time." You didn't have an easy one all day. You saw a lot of guys.
Well, we did, definitely. It's tough. They're up there taking good shots, and, I mean, you just have to stay after it. And I did. I watched him most of the racetrack until it finally came around him about the 3/4 mark, or maybe not quite that far down.
possibly when you were able to get on that button on the steering wheel that locks up the clutch? Is that when it made its move?
Oh, you're asking something I don't know anything about, Steve.
Right. Well, I read it in National Dragster, so I assume the rest of the world knows it now.
They probably do by now. No, it was good. It just hooked up and did its thing on Budweiser, Motorcraft, Kangaroos, and Dale Armstrong and crew again. A super job for a great year. We're just glad to be part of all this, and to our fans especially.
We were glad to be part of it, too. Congratulations.
Anytime, Steve. Thank you.
What a way to end the year. Number 1, 3 straight victories, 5 wins on the season, winning the Winston World Finals. Winston World Finals in Pomona, California, the final round of Top Fuel Eliminator. For Joe Amato, he is trying for his first win since the Winter Nationals in 1985 on this same racetrack. You remember yesterday, he lost in the final round of the Krager Weld Wheel Classic to Don Garlits. Now he's racing the man that finished number 2 in the world this season, 25-year-old Darrell Gwynn. He beat Garlits in the second round as Garlits red-lighted away his chance for the win. This track is special to both these drivers. For Darrell Gwynn, it is where he won his first ever national event. That came the opening race of this season as he won the Winter Nationals. And as I said, Amato won that same race back in 1985. Who's got the advantage today? Well, if you look at the performance standards, it has got to go to the young Darrell Gwynn. But if you look for experience, Joe Amato, the 1984 world champion, has got to be considered a favorite. Gwynn has won 3 races this year based primarily on his performance. And look at him go against Joe Amato by just a matter of a few feet at 5.36 seconds. Darrell Gwynn wins the final race of the season. His 269-mile-an-hour charge creates jubilation in the Gwynn family camp. Let's go back and take a look again how Darrell Gwynn puts away Joe Amato in the final round. It was a great start for both drivers. Amato got the advantage off the starting line. That's the experience coming into play. But then the performance of the Gwynn family operation proves to be too much for Joe Amato. As they neared the finish line, it is Darrell Gwynn pulling ahead by just a matter of a few feet. He holds on to that margin and takes the win.
Much like Kenny Bernstein, Darrell Gwynn had to come from behind. He was out about 300s, but were you just being careful up there?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been cutting some real good lights today, and I knew if I was halfway conservative, we'd run right with him. And that's the chance I took in the finals, just running right with him and leaving with him and just trying to basically outrun him.
Did you see him down the racetrack?
Oh, I saw him the whole way down the racetrack.
Did you know you won?
Yes, I did. Got about 800 foot down the racetrack, and I started thinking about that lock-up clutch of his, and I figured I was in trouble. But he was right there, right next to me, side by side.
Well, it was a 5:36 to a 5:40 for Joe Amato, one of the quickest drag races ever.
Well, I'd like to say that I've raced some tough competitors today, including Joe, LaHaye, and Garlits. And I'm just happy to race these guys, much less beat them.
Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
What a man to be reckoned with. Darrell Gwynn. Joe Amato over to offer his congratulations. What a capper on a tremendous race. Don't forget, coming up very quickly, just a few weeks away, will be the Motorcraft Quality Parts Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida. Make plans to attend. Darrell Gwynn getting the hug from Shelley Stanton and the entire family gathering round to offer congratulations. We'll be providing you 6 more races on our ESPN coverage of National Hot Rod Association Racing. The executive producer of Diamond B Sports is Harvey M. Palish, produced and directed by John B. Mullen. The NHRA Winston World Finals have been brought to you by Fram Bendix Autolite, all quality products of Allied Automotive. And by Goodyear, Goodyear Eagle. You either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. Coverage of the NHRA Winston World Finals